The spirit of self-help is the root of all genuine growth in the individual. Samuel Smiles.
You're listening to Writing Roots, brought to you by Aspen House Publishing.
Welcome to Writing Roots. I'm Lee Holt.
And I'm Lee Esses. Today we are covering one of the most popular genres to be read and to be purchased, but it's very rarely marketed well. So the market is very much cornered by the few traditional publishers who have got a grasp on this. We are talking about nonfiction and self-help. These informational type books that people publish and then want to get out into the world but don't quite know how. If you are looking for narrative nonfiction, stay tuned. Next episode is going to be about that. Today we're talking more about the educational type things because that's two very different audiences.
To address our 5 W's, who, what, when, where, why. When it comes to the who for this narrative nonfiction, you're going to run into a lot of older generations that are interested in it. Your Gen X, who in many cases still prefer to have paper physical versions of the information that they can reference. And some older millennials, again, a lot of the times with these self-help type books, they want the physical copy there in front of them.
On very rare occasions, you can target some of the younger millennials and even younger than that, but the information has to be very specific. The Zombie Survival Guide is a good example of something that can actually do well in paper because if you happen to need this book, then it's assumed the internet is out and you can't look up the answers to these questions anyway. Those types of things, yes, it's a little tongue-in-cheek, but it's helpful to think of why people would be wanting a book version of this instead of searching online for the information, which is generally the go-to and the norm.
When you are trying to market the book, what you're looking for with the book itself is a catchy cover. Most of these are going to be big and bold with the font. They're going to cover about half the page to really draw people in. Sometimes you'll have some sort of clever title that will catch attention and draw people. I think we've both seen a trend where there is a lot of punctuation in those titles so that they can get away with kind of having swear words like get your together. It's going to be symbols where the more offensive version of that word would be.
If you do have an image on that cover, it's often a photograph and it's very simple based on whatever the main point of your content is. You're going to have a falcon if it's based on falconry. You're going to have one of the meals in your cookbook. You're going to have possibly the celebrity that endorses or wrote the book, their face on it. If it's a familiar face that people scanning across the shelves at the bookstore would recognize right off the bat.
As for the content of these books, in most cases, they are designed to be read out of order. They can flip to the section of the book that they need the most help with right now, or they can flip to the recipe that they want because they're looking for a dessert or something. They don't have to read the book front to back to understand the whole thing.
Because of that, these books need to have a table of contents and more often than not also have an index in the back as well. So you can look up the types of things that you're looking for, and then you know where to turn in your book instead of just sort of flipping through it. A standard fiction novel or narrative nonfiction should be read front to back. Table of contents is helpful in the ebook if you're navigating, but for the most part, we don't really look at that unless we're reading the book out of order.
And as you're writing it, it is important to keep in mind that anything within a specific chapter should stand on its own. They shouldn't need the context of the rest of the book. Now, there may be a couple things here and there that you mentioned that you would need to have in like your introductory chapter, because a lot of people with a self-help, they'll read an introductory chapter and then like find an interesting chapter that applies to them a little bit later on. But each chapter should be able to stand on its own in the explanations and the advice that's provided.
Our third W is the when. And I feel like this is an easy one to get wrong and an easy one to get right. When people are looking for this kind of information, 98% of the time, it's going to be around New Year's. They're looking to improve themselves. They're looking to understand something. They're looking to become better leaders. They're looking to become better cooks. Whatever it is, this nonfiction genre is mostly sold around New Year's in association with New Year's resolutions. Every once in a while, you will have a very specific topic that is specific to a time of year. So if you have a Halloween cookbook, then that's sold obviously not on the beginning of the year, but closer to the middle of fall. But for the most part, if you're just giving information, then consider delaying your release until the beginning of the year, because that's when you can really ride that train of interest that's already in the world.
Yeah, especially self-help. That is where you're going to really hit your target audience, would be in the new year when people are making those resolutions, or in the springtime when a lot of people are doing their spring cleaning, where they're trying to get their life in order, where they're trying to reset for summer or whatever. Those are the good times of year for you to be releasing and marketing your book.
Every episode so far this month, and probably for the rest of the month, we will be breaking down the where into online and in person, and every genre will have a strength in one or the other. In this case, you're going to have a lot more power with the in-person sales than you will with the online sales. This is mostly because there is an enormous amount of trust in you, the author, that needs to take place in order for me to believe the contents of the book.
And even if you're not there in person, having the book in a bookstore and able for people to buy it in person is going to be more effective, because if it is up on that display and you do see that interesting headline or it's a cookbook, you're going to get a lot more people buying cookbooks in person than you will online, because if they're looking up recipes online, it's not likely to buy a cookbook for a recipe. They are just going to look up that recipe. And that is why your online presence for selling self-help, for selling these educational nonfiction is going to be a lot less powerful, because there is a stronger presence for those same items online in an online format than there is in a book format, where they will actively order and purchase a book version when they can just access the digital version free.
One more note about the in-person is people who are your target audience are already gathering in some capacity. Those are the people you need to get in touch with. The clubs that are centered around remodeling British sports cars or whatever it is. Those are the ones that you get in touch with. Even as you're writing the book, ask them questions, get them invested in the book. And then when you release it, they're all going to want a copy.
If you are trying to sell online, having a constant, consistent online presence before you sell the book is going to prove a very powerful tool. You can build a following through a blog. If you have a recipe blog where you are sharing your family recipes, you're going to build a good, faithful following through that. And then if you can get that following, a lot of the times they will then buy a physical version to help support you. And the same goes for the social media. You can have a TikTok account about cooking and then develop a cookbook.
So having that social media based around the same topic as your book can be a lot more powerful in selling these kinds of books, because people will already see you as an expert in the thing. So they will trust that this particular person knows how to judge and cook vintage recipes because we've seen him do it a bunch of times. The why for these kinds of books is they have a question that they want answered. Sometimes it's a, can I do the thing? Sometimes it's a, what do I need to know about the thing in order to be a better, more well-rounded individual?
When people go to nonfiction, they are looking to learn something. They are looking to come away feeling changed in some way. Whether that is they have learned a new skill, or they feel like they can maybe finally cook something for once in their life, or they just want to learn more about the world around them. Whatever you decide to write when it comes to nonfiction, It has to be marketed in a way that understands the why are people coming to you in particular. I am not going to write a nonfiction book about how to care for goats because I've never owned a goat. No one's going to come to me to learn about goats, but they might come to me to learn about firearms.
Or perhaps about the writing process.
Oh, right. There is that.
When someone wants to learn about a topic, you want your book to be the answer to their question. They aren't necessarily going to go straight to you for a thing, but they're going to go to a friend whom they trust, and the friend will be the one recommending your book to them. So you will want to make good contacts with people who already know a fair amount about it, because then they can recommend this book and you can get this extra work off of their plate by answering these questions in your book. The most important thing about writing these nonfiction books is you really have to care. If you're really bored by the topic of milking goats, then maybe writing a nonfiction book about it is not going to be the best thing for you. So if you are thinking, hey, I should write a self-help book, but I don't know what about, maybe you shouldn't write a self-help book. The book is already in you. You just have organized the information in a way to make it usable to other people. And that's why you publish the book and get it out there. So first look at what you care about the most, and then
write selfishly.
If you have a question or comment for our hosts or a topic you'd like us to cover, send us an email at writingroots@aspenhousepublishing.com or find us on Facebook by searching for Aspen House Publishing.